All right, I do a lot of walking, and from time to time, I will find somebody's dog or cat that's missing and bring it back home. And in one case, we had a blackout, a really bad blackout here. It was like 5 hours or more. And I'm talking to this girl next door who she's not there anymore. She used to rent there. And I'm outside and I got a flashlight with me. And she says, she can actually see across the street. She says, there's something running around over there. So I had the flashlight with me. And it's one of those flashlights that has a front. On the front of it, you get in the frame here. You can pull, this moves in and out. And you can make a spotlight out of it. And I aimed it at the dog. And I said, I know whose dog that is. So I go up the street and I knock on the door. Now remember, the power's off, so the doorbell isn't going to work. Guy comes to the door. He knows me. You know, I shine the flashlight on my face. I said, you missing a dog? He goes, yeah. I said, well, get your shoes on. I said, I'll go with you. You know, he said to me, it's kind of dark. I said, I got a flashlight with me. And we went and we found the dog. He called the dog. The dog came right away. And he says, the dog is getting older and it goes away from the house and it gets lost. Once way back, neighbor of mine was telling me the other night that the dog got out, it got lost, it got confused, and it sat in front of his front door. And then he called the cops. Cops came. They read the collar. It was some type of number. Maybe the cops can scan the body and get that tag. And then he said who it was, and they took the dog down the street that way. Same dog. Now, before I left New Jersey, you know, I was tight for cash, and I'm walking along, and there's a reward sign, and I see it, and I noted it, and I went home, and I had just happened. I thought I saw a cat dead by the road, but further back, it got hit, and then it made it maybe 30 feet back and died. And I saw it like this, just the fur above the grass by this lot. So I went home, I got a pen and pencil, or a pen or a pencil, and I wrote down the numbers, and I walked back over there where I saw the cat, and I read the description, and I had, but anyway, it was the cat. And it's a reward. You know, it's like $50. So I call up to claim the reward. And I get this nasty woman. And I figured out who it was too. She moved in with her son-in-law and her daughter. And she didn't like the cat. She like confessed to me on the phone. I didn't like that cat. I let it out. So she let it out and it got lost and it got hit. So I didn't give up with that. I was like, what a miserable woman. I hung the phone up. Now the next time, we had a bridge near my house over the Passaic River. On one side of the bridge is postings on the telephone pole. Missing dog, right? So I get on the other side of the bridge coming home. I notice this, on the pole, there's a posting. And when I read it, and it says, found this dog. And it matches. So I said, you know, let me go home and get a pen or a pencil. And I come back and I wrote all the description down. I went back across the bridge and I read it, got the phone number, and I called them up. And I don't know if it was $150 reward. I really could have used that money. So I called the person up and they're arguing with me. I said, look, I said, the description that I read you, does that match your dog? Yeah. Well, on the other side, all the dog did was go across the bridge. When, you know, probably late at night when it was quiet, it went across, and then somebody else on the other side of the bridge now has the dog looking for the. What a jerk! What an absolute jerk! And the person's like, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, at least call the number. I'm giving you the number of the person that. I said, all right, have a nice day, and I hung up. So here, I noticed postings, and the other morning I saw a cat in my yard that I've never saw before, and the name of the cat's Lettuce. And I'm thinking, you know, this cat's really close to home to start off with. Anyway, I stayed out of it, you know, because I did come back. I went for a walk and I come back. I didn't see the Lettuce anywhere else. But I was going to call and get involved. And I'm like, you know what? This is all I do. This is my life. I keep doing this stupid crap, you know. And I don't remember if there's a reward or not. But anyway, I tell you, I find cell phones, and then the people argue with me where I found it. Yeah, so I walk by cell phones all the time now. I told you the last one. I told you the last one I found. I was actually talking to the mailman, and the mailman says he stopped returning them. Over by where he puts the mail out, they'll set their phone on top of the mailboxes. And then he says they're never grateful. They're mad. They're like, they feel stupid, so they take it out on you. So he says, I don't do it. So I leave there, and the next day, I told you the story. I'm walking up, and on the front lawn is an iPhone, with the 3 cameras on the back. It's not a cheap phone. And the guy that lives in there, his last name's Bueller. So I'll say his name because what he did to me was wrong. And he didn't even realize he did it, but he's dead to me. Anyway, I thought to myself, I know he's on night shift and he's home, and he must have went in the house and dropped the phone on the way in. And so I ring the doorbell, and I get his dogs barking and everything, and he comes down. He puts his clothes on or whatever. He comes down. He's really pissed. I woke him up. And I hold the phone up, and I said, is this your phone? No. So I said, I'm really sorry I woke you. And as I'm walking away, it's my son's phone. No, that's not your son's phone. That's your family's phone. That's your phone. You paid for that phone. Your son didn't. That's your phone. But he says to me, that's not my phone. All right, I'm really sorry I woke you. Yeah, it's his son's phone. See how they get treated by people? Now you'd say, oh, that's nothing. No, he didn't thank me for returning the phone. All right, he didn't say that's my son's phone. I just bought it for him. It's an expensive phone. Thank you. No, that's not my phone. And then, that's my son's phone. Yeah. So now I go by and I read the postings on the phone, on the telephone poles for missing dogs, cats. I walk past cell phones. Now I was telling the one guy, he found one. Where the hell was that? He found this cell phone. He was showing it to me. I think one of the guys flagging in the street, and they were waiting for someone to call the phone. And I said, I said, you won't believe this, but you go in Walmart and you can put that phone on like a scanner, and it'll pay you money. He goes, you're kidding. I go, I'm not telling you to do it, but he's telling me the stories he put up with when he's out doing road crew. He finds them in the grass. People. Anyway, he had his stories, and I'm like, so I'm not the only one that finds cell phones. And I told you the 2 girls. She's being very evasive. Yeah. So anyway, I find this phone, and it keeps dialing and ringing, and I couldn't answer it because you have to. I have a track phone. Down at the bottom there's an icon. You put your finger on it, you go to the right, and it picks up. I had to come home to read the instructions online to figure out how to answer the phone. So anyway, I keep hitting this thing, and I'm screaming into the phone, and no one's answering. See, what they're doing is they're making the phone ring, and they want to find the phone that way, see, because they think they know where the phone is. So finally, someone hears me screaming into the phone, and they put it to the rear. I said, don't hang up. I found your phone. So the girl that picked it up, I heard it, was her friend. So the girl's next to her. She hands the phone to me. She right away says, no, I lost the phone in Ollie's. I said, listen to me. Did you not just dial your phone? Yes. I said, I'm talking on your freaking phone. Well, I left it. I don't care where you left it. I said, what neighborhood? And she was very weird about telling me where she lives. I said, okay. I said, I told her, I live over on Coreopsis. You know where Coreopsis Drive is? By the way, Coreopsis is a flower. There's Larkspur Loop. There's Greenland Drive. Daisy Lane in the area. Anyway, so she goes, yeah, I know where that is. I said, do you know the old guy with the beard? He looks like he's homeless. and he walks around the neighbor with the litter tongs and he picks the litter up. Yeah, I know him. I know him. That's me. I found your frickin' phone. So I say, I'll meet you down on Donner. I said, you live down near Donner? Yeah, yeah. I said, I'll meet you on the corner of Donner and Coreopsis. So I get down there, and these two girls are coming by, and they're sort of laughing because they know me. So she kept going about Ollie's or Gabe's, whichever store it was she thought she lost. I said, look, I'll take you up to where I found it. And we went up there, and we stood, and the one girl says to the other girl, remember yesterday or that morning, whatever. She says, remember your bag broke, your plastic bag, and you moved everything to the other bag? Oh, yeah, yeah, I must have set the phone down on the ground then. Yeah, the whole time she would not believe where I found the phone. And then finally, the other girl that was with her says, well, remember when we came back from Ollie's or Gabe's? I can't tell the stores apart. But I went in both stores. They have nothing I want. So anyway, I put my stuff down here and the bag broke, and I'm looking for the bag too because I have to clean the street because these nincompoops, there's a good word for you, nincompoop. I think it's German, means really stupid. And after that, that was it for me, And then I let a stretch go, and then I did one in the grass, and I'm like, it's one of my neighbors. That's not my phone. I'm really sorry I woke you. That's my son's phone. You should have said, oh, thank you. That's my son's phone. I just bought it. Nah, you're not going to get that from person. You don't get a thank you anymore. So if I'm not going to get a thank you, I'm not going to get involved. Yeah, I saw this cat and on the post-it, and then he was in my yard. And I'd have to go down to the park and get the phone number, then come back. It's going to go wrong for me. It's just going to go wrong for me. And someone says, well, gee, that person might have really loved the cat. Yeah, I loved my cat too, And when mine got ran over, nobody came and said, hey, your cat's down in the street. No. I had to go down there and find it myself. But anyway, I just want to tell you something. And then I don't think I mentioned it on this video, the running water noise. Now, someone can actually hear that fish tank. All right? Fish tank? Yeah. All right? Fish tank's like, where the camera is, 2.5 feet. I can't hear. And I'm not buying a hearing aid. I'm not going to buy a hearing aid so I can hear running water at the beginning of my videos. I'm not going to buy a hearing aid so I can hear my neighbors ringing my doorbell. Right? And people I talk to, I can hear them. But like the other night with Halloween, and people coming by, me talking to my neighbor next door, who was like 20 feet away. Some of the stuff I didn't hear. And they'd repeat it. I'd walk over there and they'd say it to me. It was nothing worth wearing a hearing aid for all day long. It just isn't. Now, of course, something horrible could happen. And then someone will say, if you had bought a hearing aid, you would have heard it. But for the most part, you have to wear this thing all day long, and it'll pick up every freaking noise that's outside. The garbage trucks. We have 5 brands of garbage trucks, 5 different companies that come in and pick people's garbage up. So there's always these weird noises outside from all these garbage trucks. And then you got the school buses. And then you got people getting new roofs on their house. And it's sometimes you go a week here, and it's so damn noisy. And I'm thinking, if I put a hearing aid in my ear, I'm going to hear all these noises that don't do anything for me. I told you, my father was sitting one day, and he's got my stereo on. He's got the headphones on. He takes the headphones off, and he says, one side is louder than the other. I go, really? So I put them on my head, and they're equal. I said, put it on your head. Yeah, which side? He said, my right ear is lower. I said, all right, now take the headphones off and reverse them. I said, it's still the same side. Yeah, he thought something magical was happening. I said, you got hearing loss in one of your ears. And he let it go another like 6 months or whatever. And my mother got tired. So they went over to the hearing aid doctor, and the guy tested my father and told him how bad his ears were. But he never got a hearing aid. right? I would sit when he'd watch TV. What did they say? I was his hearing aid. What did they say? What did they say? And I sort of tell people when I come up on them, I say, look, I have really bad hearing. And some of them do. They raise their voice a little bit, and then we have a great conversation. Most people, their voice falls within a range. I might mishear a word, one or two, and I told you I walk around and I ask people these questions. The question, I did a video on it. Basically, how'd you get along with your parents? So one friend said to me, "See, I noticed this is a different response from your friends. A stranger will open up to you like you can't believe, especially if they're out of state. They're in the parking lot." And their wife is in Ollie's or Gabe shopping. They're from like another state. And I start talking. They tell me stuff like, oh, the wife drives me crazy, and blah, blah, blah. But they would never tell their friend this because they could get back to the wife. So I asked this one friend of mine about, what was your relationship with your parents? He said, I'd rather be shot than say anything bad about my parents. I was like, I knew his parents. I was just curious to, my opinion of what I saw and what his opinion was. Okay, it was a loaded question, and normally I don't do that, but that's my latest thing. I told you I used to find cell phones, lost cats, lost dogs. Oh, wallets. Wallets are always bad. The people will get the wallet back with the money in it, and then count the money in front of me. I haven't found a wallet. I'm going to jinx myself. I have not found a wallet in probably 10 years here. And the one time I found a wallet for a kid, it had money in it. And he was in the back section of this neighborhood, which was a drug-ridden section at one time. And I went over to where the address was and rang the door. I had a long talk with the guy. He says, my son's not supposed to be back there. I said, well, that's where I found the wallet. He goes, oh, I know he's been sneaking back there to get more pot. And I said, well, we have a problem down the back, which they were renting, and they got kicked out, the kid that was selling drugs. So anyway, yeah, so I have these things that I do to kill time. Like I told you, I used to walk along and find money, but everybody's using Apple Pay. But one of my hobbies was I'd walk along, pick money up, and then when I got $1, I'd go to Walmart and get a lottery ticket. Then it went to $2. Now it's $5, and the odds are so ridiculous that you're going to win anything. $5 to me is too much money to throw away. And I don't find it on the ground anymore because everybody's using Apple Pay or debit cards. It all happened since the pandemic. People stopped using change. And once in a while you see this anemic dime or nickel on the ground that's been ran over in the parking lots, ran over by so many cars. And even pennies are getting rare. It's amazing. But yeah, I do all these things to amuse myself. And I'm meeting all these strange people, and we're having these conversations. I'm like, well, let me push the envelope a little bit. Let me say to this guy, what were your parents like? When you look back on, do you think they were really smart? Or, no. And I'm like, okay. So that's helping me get past some of the stuff I had problems with my parents. They just kept screwing up all the time. And then when I got to a certain age, we'd be at the dinner table. I said, no, you don't want to do that because this will go wrong. And my mother would always call her sister, who was really stupid. She'd call her for advice. And I said, you got to stop doing that. You know she's not smart. Why do you call her? Well, I bounced the idea. You're bouncing the idea off of a stupid person. What you got to do is you got to bounce the idea off someone you know is doing really well. All right? You don't bounce the idea off someone when you call them they're drunk. I let loose when I got older with my parents. I'm like, I'm getting tired of, you buying windows in the house that leak because you went $10 per window too cheap. And then we had to get storm windows put on them so they wouldn't leak. And they just kept making all these bad decisions. And then one time I went down the cellar, and my father's got the washing machine apart. And he's like, I need this part, I need that. I said, are you shitting me? That thing's 25 years old. Yeah, but the parts are still available, or they might still be available. And I'm like, no. I said, I was working. I said, no, go up the stairs and get a new washing machine. So that's what my mother did. And then my brother-in-law, he had a van. He never did anything for anybody, basically anybody. He got hosed, or he got swindled, not swindled. He got grabbed to take his van up there and bring the new washing machine home. And my mother ran a load of wash to make sure she could work it and stuff. But at some point, I started changing my parents. But that's what I'm asking these other people. But a lot of people, I told somebody, I said, yeah, my parents, I left my wallet on the steps going to my room upstairs. And my mother would just go in there and take money out. And I was telling this one guy, and he says, I would have moved out. I said, yeah, I was 20 something years old. My mother would open letters that I got. And he goes, several people said I would have killed her. Other people, I would have moved out. Yeah. But my mother was a nosy Rosie. Her name was Rose. She was a nosy Rosie. It just bothered her what everybody did. And yeah, that's where we're at. I'm off ranting, but yeah, I find wallets in the old days and cell phones and people's lost animals and taking people's garbage. And my one friend said about that, he goes, I would draw the line at that. And they did stuff to piss me off, too. In other words, it became my job to handle their garbage. And people take advantage of you, and I understand that now. And I told you, I was telling some woman that was walking with me, telling me her problems. I let her have one of mine. And she prayed over me. She says, what you got to do is you got to learn boundaries. I said, well, I was raised Episcopal. They told me to take care of the other person first and then worry about me second. And she's an evangelical. And they're like, no, you got to get boundaries. You got to start looking after your own self. But it used to make me feel good to help other people. But then I realized they're just lazy and taking advantage. I think that's it. All right, that's it. Now we know where the noise is coming from, huh? The fish tank. I cannot hear it. I cannot hear it. And it could be my earbuds. All right.